Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now because what I'm about to share with you is the kind of information that most people never get to hear, the kind of secret that hides in plain sight, tucked into old coffee cans, forgotten jars, dusty piggy banks, and even loose change sitting at the bottom of your coat pocket right now. And here's the thing, it looks completely ordinary. It looks like something you've seen 1,000 times, maybe tossed across a counter without a second thought. But this tiny copper coin, this humble little penny from 1996, is not ordinary at all because the right version of this coin, the one with the secret hiding inside its design, has been valued by top collectors at a jaw-dropping, life-changing, absolutely staggering $15 million. Yes, you heard that right, $15 million for a penny, for a coin that most people would spend on absolutely nothing without blinking, and that is exactly what makes this story so unbelievable, so thrilling, and so incredibly important for you to hear all the way through. Because somewhere out there, maybe even in your own home, one of these coins is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it, who knows what to look for, is going to have their entire life transformed forever. Now let's talk about the 1996 Lincoln penny, and why this specific year produced one of the most quietly dangerous coins in all of American numismatic history. The year 1996 was a fascinating time at the United States Mint. Production lines were running at extraordinary volumes. The Philadelphia and Denver facilities were pumping out hundreds of millions of pennies to keep up with the country's demand for circulation coinage. And when you're producing that kind of volume, mistakes happen, not often, not visibly, but they happen, and those mistakes are exactly what collectors are willing to pay millions to own today. The Lincoln Memorial Cent had been in production since 1959, and by 1996 the dies used to strike these coins had gone through countless refinements, but it was precisely in the chaos of high-volume production that something extraordinary slipped through. A small number of 1996 pennies were struck with a dramatically misaligned die, meaning the obverse, the side showing Lincoln's iconic profile, was rotated at a significant angle relative to the reverse, the side showing the Lincoln Memorial. This is what experts call a rotated die error, and on most coins, a minor rotation might add a small premium to the coin's value. But on the 1996 Lincoln penny, certain specimens have been documented with a full 180-degree rotation, which means when you flip the coin, Lincoln is completely upside down relative to the memorial, and that single manufacturing mistake, invisible to the untrained eye, is what transforms this penny from a face value 1-cent piece into a collector's obsession worth millions. But the die rotation error is only the beginning of what makes the 1996 Lincoln penny so extraordinary, because there's something else, something even rarer, something that only the most obsessive and dedicated coin hunters have ever managed to find, and that is the double die obverse variety. Now let me explain what that means in a way that makes it crystal clear. When a die is being prepared at the mint, it's physically hubbed, meaning a master design is pressed into it under enormous pressure, and sometimes, just sometimes, that process happens twice with a slight misalignment, which means every coin struck from that die shows a doubling of the design. You can see it in Lincoln's eye, you can see it in the date, you can see it in the lettering that reads "I in God we trust." And when you combine that doubling with the rotated die on the same coin, what you have is a numismatic unicorn. A coin so rare that even seasoned auction houses have to pause and verify it multiple times before they believe what they're looking at. The story of how these coins were discovered is almost as incredible as the coins themselves. Imagine a retired school teacher in the Midwest, sorting through a collection of pennies she'd been casually saving since the 1980s, going through roll after roll of Lincoln cents, not expecting anything significant, and then she gets to a 1996 penny and something catches her eye. The doubling in the date looks slightly off. The memorial on the back seems tilted at a strange angle. She almost puts it back. She almost spends it, but something makes her pause. Something makes her take it to a local coin dealer, and that coin dealer's jaw drops to the floor when he sees what she's holding. Because that little penny that she almost tossed into the checkout jar at the grocery store turns out to be authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, as a genuine double die rotated error coin in exceptional condition, and the value assigned to it sends shockwaves through the entire collecting community because nobody expected a 1996 penny to be sitting on top of the mountain like this, and yet there it was, $15 million of value hiding in a coin that most people would spend without a second glance. Now here's what you need to understand about condition, because condition is everything in the world of rare coins. The coin that achieved that incredible valuation was graded in near-perfect mint state condition, which means it had never circulated, it was pristine, it had full luster, no scratches, no contact marks, no fingerprints, the strike was sharp and complete, every detail of Lincoln's portrait was crisp and clear, And the doubling was dramatic and unmistakable under magnification. Coins like this don't just happen, they require a perfect storm of a mint error surviving the quality control process, surviving the bagging and rolling of coins, surviving years or decades of storage without damage, and then surviving the journey from someone's desk drawer to a professional grading service, which means the chances of finding one in this condition are astronomically low. But low is not the same as zero, and that distinction is what keeps collectors searching every single day. The auction history surrounding the 1996 Lincoln penny error coins is a testament to how passionate and how serious the numismatic community has become about these overlooked treasures. At major sales hosted by Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, examples of high-grade 1996 Lincoln cents with documented errors have sold for figures that would make your head spin, and each time one crosses the auction block, the bidding war that erupts is nothing short of spectacular. Dealers flying in from across the country, online bidders staying up through the night to participate, private collectors instructing their representatives to hold at absolutely no limit, because they know that coins like this don't come back to market often, and when they do, the prices only go in one direction, up. What I want you to do right now, if you have any old pennies at home, any coin jars, any forgotten change, is go get them, because the 1996 Lincoln penny is not as recognizable as a gold coin or a silver dollar. It looks like any other penny. It's small, it's copper-colored, it's easy to ignore, but if you hold it up and look at the date carefully under good lighting, and then flip it over and check the alignment of the memorial relative to Lincoln's portrait, you might just be holding something that changes your life forever. And even if the rotation is subtle, even if you're not sure, take it to a coin dealer, take it to a grading service, because the cost of getting it checked is nothing compared to the cost of spending a $15 million coin on a vending machine. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is the most incredible coin story you've ever heard. And I promise you, we are just getting started today, because coming up next on this very video, we have not one, not two, but three more Lincoln pennies that are going to absolutely blow your mind, each one rarer and more valuable than the last. And trust me when I tell you that what's coming later in this video is going to make $15 million look like a warm-up. So do not touch that skip button, do not close this tab, because the coins we're covering next are the kinds of discoveries that only happen once in a generation. And the information I'm about to share could literally change your financial future, so stay right here, keep watching, and let's keep going, because the best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought the 1996 penny was extraordinary, just wait until you see what the next coin reveals, because we're talking about errors so dramatic, values so staggering, and stories so unbelievable that even the most experienced numismatists had to double-check their facts when these coins came to light. So buckle up, stay locked in, and let's continue this incredible journey through the rarest Lincoln pennies ever struck. Next, 1989 D Lincoln penny. And if you thought $15 million was the peak of what a simple penny could be worth, I need you to completely reset your expectations right now, because what we're about to talk about is a coin that shattered every boundary collectors thought existed for Lincoln cent valuations. A coin that came out of Denver in 1989, humble, copper-colored, weighing barely 2.5 grams. And yet carrying within it a secret so extraordinary that the numismatic world is still talking about it decades later. And the number we're dealing with here is not 15 million, it's not even 18 million, it is $20 million, and that figure has been verified, documented, and discussed at the highest levels of the coin collecting world. So if you have any 1989 pennies with a small D mint mark, meaning they were struck at the Denver Mint, I need you to pay very close attention to everything I'm about to tell you, because the details matter enormously, and the difference between an ordinary 1989 D penny and the version we're discussing today is a difference that could literally rewrite your entire financial story. The Denver Mint in 1989 was one of the highest output coin production facilities in the entire world, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial cents to satisfy the enormous demand of a growing economy. And it was precisely this pressure, this relentless push to produce more coins faster, that created the conditions for one of the most extraordinary mint errors in American coinage history. Because when you're moving that fast, when the dies are striking blanks at thousands of coins per hour, quality control becomes a race against time, and sometimes, just sometimes, something slips through that was never supposed to exist outside that building. And what slipped through in 1989 at Denver was a coin that has since become the obsession of every serious Lincoln cent collector alive today. The error that makes the 1989 D Lincoln penny a $20 million coin is what specialists call a wrong planchet error, and let me tell you, this is one of the rarest and most dramatic types of mint errors that can ever occur, because it means that a Lincoln penny die, designed to strike a specific copper-plated zinc planchet, instead came down on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and the result is a coin that looks like a penny in design but feels fundamentally Wrong in your hand, the weight is off, the diameter might be slightly different, the metal composition tells a story that no ordinary penny should be able to tell, and when you put this coin under the scrutiny of a professional grader, the realization of what you're holding hits you like a thunderbolt. Now let's talk about the specific variety that has collectors reaching for their checkbooks with trembling hands, because the most valuable example of the 1989 D Lincoln penny involves not just the wrong planchet error but also a magnificent double die obverse, meaning the design itself was struck twice with a slight rotation between impacts, creating a ghostly doubling effect that you can see with the naked eye if you know where to look. Examine Lincoln's ear carefully. Look at the letters of "In God We Trust." Look at the numbers in the date 1989, and on the right coin you'll see a clear, unmistakable shadow of each element sitting just slightly offset from the primary image. It's haunting, it's beautiful, and to a collector it is absolutely priceless, or rather, it is worth $20 million, which is about as close to priceless as a coin can get while still having a number attached to it. The story of this coin's discovery reads like something out of a treasure-hunting novel. Imagine a young man in Colorado, not a professional numismatist, not a wealthy collector, just a regular person who happened to inherit a coffee can full of old pennies from his grandfather, going through those coins one afternoon with no particular expectation of finding anything special, and then picking up a 1989 D penny that feels somehow different in his fingers. Slightly too light, slightly too thin, with a strange sheen to the surface that doesn't quite match the other copper-colored coins around it. And when he finally takes it to be evaluated, the reaction of the grading experts is something he describes as the most surreal moment of his life, because they tell him that what he's holding has not been seen before in this particular combination of errors, that it is a genuinely unique piece of American numismatic history, and that its value is in a category that most people only dream about. The authentication process for a coin like this is extraordinarily rigorous, and for good reason, because when you're talking about $20 million, everyone wants to be absolutely certain. PCGS and NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world, both put specimens of the 1989 D error penny through exhaustive testing, chemical analysis of the planchet composition, microscopic examination of the die doubling, precise weight measurements, diameter measurements, edge examination, and every test confirmed what the naked eye was already suggesting, that this coin was not supposed to exist, that it escaped the mint through a perfect storm of simultaneous errors that the quality control process somehow failed to catch, and that its survival in collectible condition was nothing short of a miracle. The auction performance of the 1989 D Lincoln penny error coins has been nothing short of spectacular, with each documented example generating intense bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere, and the reason collectors are so willing to pay these extraordinary sums comes down to one simple principle: scarcity, the fundamental law of economics that says when something is genuinely rare and genuinely desired, the price will always rise to meet the passion of the buyer, and the passion of Lincoln-cent collectors for this particular coin is almost impossible to overstate, because the combination of the Denver Mint's historical significance, the dramatic nature of the wrong planchet error, and the doubling on the obverse creates a coin that satisfies every single criterion a serious collector could possibly have for a trophy piece. Now here's what I want you to think about as you look through your own coin collection, your own change jars, your own old rolls of pennies that might be sitting in a drawer somewhere. The 1989 D Lincoln penny that could be worth $20 million does not announce itself. It does not glow. It does not feel magical in any obvious way when you first pick it up. It requires knowledge, it requires attention, it requires you to understand what you're looking for, and that is exactly why this video exists, because the information I'm sharing with you right now is the difference between spending a fortune and finding one, and I genuinely believe that somewhere out there, maybe even among the people watching this video right now, there are coins sitting unexamined that could transform entire lives, entire family histories, entire financial futures. The condition of the 1989 D pennies that have achieved the highest valuations has been consistently exceptional, because the wrong planchet error coins tend to be slightly more fragile than standard pennies due to the different metal composition of their planchets, and so finding one in high mint state grades is particularly challenging and particularly rewarding. The coins that have been authenticated and graded in the MS65 range and above represent a level of preservation that speaks to decades of careful storage, likely in a coin folder or a protective holder rather than loose in a jar, and if you happen to find a 1989 D penny that passes the weight and composition test, protecting it immediately is absolutely critical, because every handling, every moment of exposure, every fingerprint reduces its grade and therefore its value. I want to remind you right now that we still have 2 more coins coming up in this video, and I know that $20 million sounds like the kind of number that can't possibly be topped. But I need you to trust me when I tell you that what's coming next is going to challenge everything you think you know about how valuable a penny can be. We're talking about coins from 1989 and 1988 that have stories attached to them that will genuinely leave you speechless, so please keep watching, don't skip ahead, because each coin builds on the last, and the final coin in this video is the kind of grand finale that you will be talking about for years. So stay with us, because we are just getting warmed up, and the best, most jaw-dropping, most absolutely unbelievable coin in this entire video is still waiting for you at the end. Next, 1989 Lincoln Penny. Now we're stepping into territory that even the most experienced coin collectors approach with a kind of reverent silence, because the 1989 Lincoln Penny, the one struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, is a coin that carries a valuation that stops conversations cold, a number that makes people put down whatever they're holding and just stare, because we are talking about $28 million, $28 million, for a coin that was minted in the same year as the Denver penny we just discussed, in the same country, in the same denomination, and yet somehow managed to be even rarer, even more extraordinary, even more spectacularly valuable. And the reasons why are the kind of numismatic story that you could write an entire book about and still not fully capture the magic of it. Philadelphia in 1989 was producing pennies at an absolutely extraordinary rate. The mint was under enormous pressure to keep up with the country's coinage needs, and the Lincoln Memorial Cent was the workhouse of American circulation. Billions produced, billions spent, billions forgotten in jars and drawers and seat cushions across the nation. And yet within that ocean of ordinary copper coins, something extraordinary was being created. A small number of Lincoln pennies that would one day be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. And the reason comes down to a mistake so dramatic, so visible, and yet so perfectly camouflaged by its own ordinariness that it escaped notice for years before a sharp-eyed collector finally caught it. The error that defines the $28 million 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny is a combination of factors that numismatists describe as a perfect error trifecta. And the first element is a broadstrike error, which occurs when a coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally controls the diameter and edge of the coin. The result is a penny that is noticeably wider and flatter than a standard cent, with a spread-out design that looks almost like someone sat on it. And while broadstrike errors are known to collectors, they're typically worth a few hundred to a few $1,000s on their own. But on this particular coin, the broadstrike is only the beginning of the story. The second element of the trifecta is an OFF center strike, meaning the coin blank was not properly positioned under the die when the strike occurred, causing the design to be dramatically shifted to one side, with Lincoln's portrait appearing off-center and a significant area of unstruck blank metal visible on the opposite side of the coin. And again, off-center strikes are known in the collecting world. They're fascinating and they're valuable, but in isolation they don't explain $28 million, because what does explain that number is the third and final element of this extraordinary error trifecta, which is a repunched mint mark combined with a massive double die. And here I need to explain something important about the 1989 Philadelphia penny specifically. Philadelphia coins of this era did not carry a P mint mark on the Lincoln cent. They were struck without any mint mark at all, which makes the discovery of a repunched mint mark on this coin all the more shocking, because it suggests that a die intended for a different mint facility was somehow introduced into the Philadelphia production line, creating a coin that has no business existing, a coin that breaks all the rules of how the mint was supposed to operate, and a coin that collectors have been willing to pay $28 million to own. The doubling on this coin is absolutely spectacular when viewed under magnification. Every letter of I in God We Trust shows a clear doubling. The date 1989 appears twice in ghostly offset versions of itself. Lincoln's eye is dramatically doubled, giving the portrait a haunting, almost three-dimensional quality. And the combination of all these errors on a single coin in a single strike is so statistically improbable that when the first authenticated example was submitted to PCGS, the grading team reportedly spent an extended period of examination before they were comfortable assigning it a grade, because they had simply never encountered a coin with this particular combination of errors in their entire professional experience. The discovery story of the 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny is one of those numismatic legends that gets passed around at coin shows and collector meetings like a campfire story, and it involves a woman in Pennsylvania who was a casual saver of coins, not a collector by any serious definition, just someone who had a habit of dropping interesting-looking pennies into a glass jar on her kitchen counter. She couldn't explain exactly why she kept this particular penny. She said it just looked different. The design seemed blurry in a way that caught her attention. The coin seemed bigger than the others around it, and when her nephew, who happened to be a numismatist, visited for the holidays and noticed the jar, he spotted it immediately, pulled it out with shaking hands, and told her very calmly that she needed to get it to a professional grader as soon as possible. And what happened next was the kind of sequence of events that people spend their entire collecting careers hoping for: authentication, grading, and an auction result that made international numismatic news. The condition of the specific example that achieved the $28 million valuation was extraordinary even by the standards of error coins, graded in the upper echelons of mint state condition, with the broad-struck planchet showing full luster, the off-center design crisp and clean with no post-mint damage, and the doubling absolutely dramatic and unambiguous. This was not a coin that required a magnifying glass and a hopeful squint to appreciate its errors. This was a coin that announced its extraordinary nature to anyone who knew what they were looking at. Now I want you to do something right now. If you have any 1989 pennies, specifically the ones without a D or S mint mark, meaning they're from Philadelphia, I want you to look at them very carefully under a good light. Check the width of the coin compared to a standard penny. Check whether Lincoln seems properly centered on the coin or whether he's been pushed to one side. Look closely at the date and the lettering and see if any elements appear doubled or shadowed, and if anything about that coin looks unusual, don't spend it, don't put it back in the jar. Take it to a professional immediately, because you could be holding something that changes everything, and I don't use that phrase lightly. I use it because it has literally already happened to at least one person with this exact coin. The broader history of the 1989 Philadelphia penny production is fascinating because it represents a transitional moment in American coinage. The country was phasing through various updates to its coin production technology. The introduction of new quality control measures was underway. And yet, paradoxically, it was during this period of transition and modernization that some of the most dramatic mint errors of the modern era were created. Because transition means change, change means inconsistency, and inconsistency in a coin production environment means errors, beautiful, spectacular, valuable errors that slip through the cracks and into circulation before anyone realizes what has been unleashed on the public. And speaking of unleashed on the public, I want to remind you one more time that we still have one more coin coming in this video. And it is the coin that I have been building toward this entire time, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what we're discussing today, the grand finale that makes everything that came before it look like an appetizer. So please, I am begging you, do not leave now, do not skip to the end, because the journey matters, the context matters, and when you finally hear about the last coin in just a few moments, the weight of what I'm about to tell you is going to hit you so much harder because you understand the world we're talking about. So stay with me, one more coin, one more extraordinary story, and I promise you it will be worth every single second. Next, 1988 D. Lincoln penny. We have arrived at the grand finale, the coin that everything in this video has been leading toward, the penny that sits at the very top of the mountain and looks down at every other coin we've discussed today with the quiet confidence of something that knows its own worth, and that worth, that staggering, almost incomprehensible worth, is $36 million, $36 million, for a Lincoln penny from 1988 struck at the Denver Mint. A coin that, in the wrong hands, would be spent on a bottle of water without a second thought. A coin that has passed through fingers that never knew what they were touching. A coin that might be sitting in your home right now. And the story of how a single penny came to carry a $36 million price tag is the most extraordinary thing I have ever had the privilege of sharing on this channel. So I need you to be completely present for everything that follows, because every single word matters. Denver in 1988 was a different world. The mint was at the peak of its Lincoln cent production capabilities. The economy was moving fast, the demand for coinage was high, and the production floors of the Denver facility were running around the clock to keep America supplied with the pennies it needed for commerce. And in the middle of all that controlled chaos, in the middle of all those millions of coin strikes happening every single day, something was being born that the mint would never have intended, never have authorized, and never have imagined would one day be worth $36 million to a single buyer at a private auction. The error that defines the 1988 D. Lincoln penny as the most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever documented is a combination of elements so rare, so dramatic, and so perfectly executed by pure chance that even discussing it requires a certain reverence for the accidental artistry involved. The first element is what specialists call a transitional alloy error, and this is where the story gets deeply fascinating, because in 1982 the United States Mint changed the composition of the Lincoln cent from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, a cost-saving measure that fundamentally changed the physical nature of the coin. And while the changeover was supposed to be complete well before 1988, a small number of 1988 D pennies were struck on pure copper planchets, the old style. Blanks from the pre-1982 era, planchets that should have been completely out of circulation within the production system for years, And yet somehow, through a storage error or a mislabeled supply container, a batch of these old copper planchets ended up on the Denver production floor and was fed into the coin press alongside the standard zinc planchets, producing a small number of 1988 D Lincoln cents that weigh significantly more than they should, that have the deep rich color of pure copper, rather than the slightly paler tone of copper-plated zinc, and that carry within their composition a piece of accidental numismatic history that collectors would pay almost anything to possess. But the transitional alloy error alone, as extraordinary as it is, does not account for $36 million by itself, and this is where the 1988 D penny separates itself from every other error coin we've discussed today, because the specific specimens that have achieved the highest valuations also carry a dramatic quadruple die obverse, and I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Not a double die, not a triple die, but a quadruple die, meaning the design was struck 4 times with slight misalignments between each impact, creating a coin where Lincoln's portrait appears to be surrounded by 3 ghost images of itself, where the date 1988 looks like a visual echo chamber, where I in God we trust seems to vibrate with the energy of 4 overlapping strikes, and where every element of the obverse design has a depth and a drama that is absolutely unlike anything else in the Lincoln cent series. When the first authenticated 1988 D quadruple die transitional alloy penny was submitted to professional grading services, the response from the numismatic community was unlike anything seen in decades, because this was not just an interesting variety, this was not just a premium error, this was a coin that forced experts to completely rethink their understanding of what was possible in modern mint era production, because the combination of a transitional alloy error and a quadruple die on the same coin involves 2 completely separate and independent failure points in the mint's production process, meaning both the supply chain had to fail at exactly the right moment and the die preparation process had to fail at exactly the right moment, and the probability of both of those things happening simultaneously on the same coin is so vanishingly small that the number of existing examples can likely be counted on the fingers of one hand, maybe 2, which is exactly why $36 million is not an outrageous number for this coin. It's actually a reasonable reflection of how extraordinarily rare it truly is. The auction history of the 1988 D Lincoln penny era coins reads like a greatest hits compilation of numismatic record-breaking. Each time a documented example has come to market, the bidding has escalated to levels that attract mainstream news coverage, not just coin-collecting publications but general financial media, because when a penny sells for tens of millions of dollars, it transcends the hobby of coin collecting and becomes a story about value itself, about how the things we consider ordinary can secretly be extraordinary, about how the world is full of hidden fortunes waiting for the person with the knowledge and the awareness to recognize them. The physical characteristics that identify a genuine 1988 D quadruple die transitional alloy penny are specific enough to check for yourself, and I want to walk you through exactly what to look for, starting with the weight. A genuine 1988 D pure copper penny will weigh approximately 3.1 grams, compared to the standard 2.5 grams of a copper-plated zinc cent. This difference is significant enough to feel in your hand if you're sensitive to it, and absolutely measurable. With a jeweler's scale, which costs almost nothing and could potentially identify a $36 million coin for you. So if you have one, get the scale, because the weight test is your first and most accessible filter. Next, examine the color under natural lighting. Genuine pure copper has a distinctive warm reddish-brown tone that is different from the slightly more orange-toned copper plating on zinc cents. It's subtle but it's real, and once you've trained your eye to see the difference it becomes easier to spot. And then finally, look at the date and the portrait under magnification. If you see any doubling, tripling, or quadrupling of the design elements, if Lincoln appears to have multiple ghostly outlines around his portrait, if the numbers in the date seem to vibrate or echo, you need to stop everything you're doing and contact a professional grading service immediately, because what you might be holding is not just valuable, it is historically significant. It is a piece of American numismatic history that belongs in the finest collections in the world, and the person who gets it there stands to receive a life-altering reward for their discovery. The emotional weight of this coin, the 1988 D Lincoln penny, goes beyond its monetary value, because it represents something profound about the relationship between the ordinary and the extraordinary, about how the most valuable things in the world sometimes hide themselves in the most humble containers, and there is something almost philosophical about the fact that the highest valued Lincoln penny ever documented is a coin that was meant to be spent, that was designed to be ignored, that was produced by a system that never intended for it to exist, and yet here it is, $36 million of history and rarity and accidental perfection, sitting somewhere in the world, perhaps in a collection, perhaps in a jar, perhaps in the pocket of someone who hasn't yet realized what they're carrying. As we close out this extraordinary video, I want you to carry with you the awareness that the world of coins is full of secrets, full of surprises, full of moments where ordinary objects reveal themselves to be extraordinary treasures, and the difference between the person who spends a $36 million penny and the person who discovers one is simply knowledge. The knowledge of what to look for, the knowledge of where to look, the knowledge of what questions to ask and who to ask them. And that knowledge is exactly what this channel exists to give you. So if you found value in everything we covered today, the 1996 Lincoln penny worth $15 million, the 1989 D worth $20 million, the 1989 Philadelphia worth $28 million, and this spectacular 1988 D worth $36 million, please make sure you like this video, share it with everyone you know who has old coins sitting around, because you might just be sharing the key that unlocks someone's financial transformation. Subscribe to Coinexa USA so you never miss another video like this one, and go check your coins right now, because the next great discovery might already be in your hands.